All right, everybody, can I get a drum roll, please? Ladies, are you an entrepreneur that is overwhelmed? You need to get out of one-to-one and hours for dollars. Has your messaging become boring or vanilla? Do you need to build a team? Do you need to have a more clear message to start up-leveling your game and attracting the right clients? Let's get honest. Do you need to get your shit together with your systems and your structure? Do you need to go from a solopreneur to an entrepreneur and hire a team and have help? Do you need to boss up? Do you need to quit treating your business like a hobby, for gosh sakes? Do you want to learn how to make a passive and leveraged income? And quite honestly, who wouldn't want this? But would you like to make more money and work less? If the answer to any of those was hell yes, then you need to get your butt to the once a year Front Seat Life event. It is streamlined, up-leveled, less hoopla, more connection, and it is in the gorgeous downtown Seattle in beautiful September here in Seattle at the Sheraton Grand, September 19th, 20th, and 21st. Thursday night, we're having a party. Friday, I am going to just give every single bit of content to you. No fluff, no bullshit, no hoopla. Just all amazing content and connection and just high level. And then Saturday, we will meet for a half a day. You get to connect with high-level entrepreneurs. You get to be where the action is at. So you might meet somebody in that room that is going to change your life. Get your butt there. Tickets are ridiculously inexpensive. Grab a friend, get yourself here. The room rates are fantastic. You are not going to regret this. I know what you're thinking. I may not be qualified. I don't need this. Let me tell you, 1 year from now, you're going to be in the exact same stuck spot in your job if you don't make this decision now. It is affordable. It's enough days for you to get away. Tell your spouse, tell whoever's in your life, I am going to go do this for myself so that I can finally start taking my business seriously. That's it, friends. Get yourself there. The link to come join us in Seattle is in the show notes, or go over to jessicabutts.com. A pop-up will pop up. It will be the simplest thing you've ever done. There's no digging. You don't have to find it. Go to jessicabutts.com, get yourself enrolled. And I cannot wait to hug you and see you and talk directly to you. It's a small, intimate group, and we will be able to connect, and it will be the best decision you've made in your business in a very, very, very long time, or ever. See you there. Hello, Miss Dana Adams.
Hello, Jessica.
Hi. I love doing this podcast for a lot of different reasons, but one of the main reasons is I get to bring in my clients, my friends, women I respect tremendously into my home and have a real conversation. So Dana is here in my house. We both have our feet up. We both have pink toenail polish, I noticed. It is hot as balls here today in Seattle. She looks really cute and I'm all scrubbed out, but it doesn't matter because we're on a podcast. And Dana is here technically to talk about branding. But as she walked in the door, I this morning did a Facebook Live about resistance and vulnerability, and I lost my shit and I'm crying and I'm doing all the things. And she opens the door and is like, well, I think we're going to talk about something different today. So you're here. We're going to see what comes out. But technically, this is about showing up and likely some resistance. So my darling, beautiful client and friend, tell us who you are and what you do. You wear a couple of hats.
Yeah. So who I am, I'm Dana Adams, and I'm the founder of the Life Mapping Institute. I am the author of Live Your Gift and the Live Your Gift Companion Guide. And I speak and lead a transformational workshop called Life Mapping. And what we do in life mapping really is I help people on a foundational level get really clear about who they are in a sense of what they believe and how they really want to show up and interact with people. And then how they can take care of themselves at an optimal level. And that's whether that's spiritually or physically, intellectually. And then really we move into life mapping, which is a system for setting and accomplishing some pretty ambitious goals, and how to do that in a way that's supported in science. It is endorsed by a Harvard psychiatrist, and then incorporate that into your lifestyle. And a big part of that is, how do you get past the resistance? And especially if you feel like you're meant to be doing more with your life, but you don't know how to go from where you are today to where you see yourself in the future.
How powerful is that, everybody?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Front Seat Life podcast. This is Jessica Butts, your host and CEO and creator of Front Seat Life, where I help you be unapologetically who you are in your life, love, and business. So tell us a little bit, this is a bit of a shameless plug, but also a plug for me and a plug for you.
Yeah.
So what's crazy about you and I is that, tell the listeners how we met. Because again, I think this is a shameless plug for what a badass you are, as well as the event and how this all transpired. So tell the listeners, I love this story.
Yeah. So someone that I work with was planning to attend Jessica's event 2 years ago, the Front Seat Life event. And she was not going to be able to attend on the third day. And the third day was when Jessica would bring in her team of experts who are great at what they do. And I noticed on the list that one of the experts was a gal named Karen Lynn Marr, who helps people write and publish books. And as soon as I saw that, I thought to myself, oh yeah, I'm going to that. And so I showed up on the last day. I attended these sessions, and literally the session with Karen, which was a kind of a writing circle and writing about clarity, I already was super clear on what I was supposed to be doing, and I was terrified to step into it. And I had known that I felt like, and I believed there was something big, but that started 22 years before. And I honestly was I was too afraid, and I was stuck in a lot of old internal negative conversations and just really not sure where to start. And especially as a single mom, raising my 4 boys and responsible for them financially and running a real estate career, and just already feeling, I think like so many people do, just at already stretched so thin.
Yeah.
And so for 22 years, I would hear that voice or see that vision, and I would just tune it out intentionally. I mean, I was aware, just saying, you know what, I can't deal with you right now. But for me, that particular day at the workshop, it was absolutely a breakthrough. And it was a moment in time, a marker in the sand of I'm not going back. And I'm done succumbing to the voice and being small when I felt like internally and intuitively, that's not what my purpose is.
Yeah.
And
was that not a God moment for you? So that was such a God moment, because I will remember Stephanie, my assistant, the event is crazy for me. Like, it's just a lot of stuff. And I remember her coming up to me and saying, okay, this is totally random. I kind of feel like I shouldn't even bug you about this, because my guess is your answer is just going to be yes. But this chick wants to come on the last day. It's like, we don't know who she is. Is this okay? And I was like, yes, of course it's okay, because she probably needs to be here. Like, how random is this? You find out about it. You show up on this last day. And then in that moment, Karen Lynn Marr had a huge impact on your life. And you just said yes. You didn't know me. I was barely on the stage. In fact, I don't think I was on the stage at all that day. And you signed up. In fact, I had already made the offer the day before. And again, I remember Stephanie going, wow, that chick that like randomly came, she's now signing up and she just wants to be a part. If that is not, and I bring this up because I know there are listeners right now, and I think this is part of resistance and part of where we're going to go with this conversation is that everyone has that moment of when you need to listen to your gut. And for you, you were probably at your wit's end. You were fed up with your own stories. You were fed up with your own bullshit. I think about how far you've come since I met you. I mean, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but our first many calls, you cried through the whole call. And now you've written a book. You've written a companion guide. You've completely changed your life. And I can see you tearing up right in front of me. You are like a new person. And it's all because you said yes to a calling in the moment. Oftentimes people try to give me credit and I'm like, I can't really take any credit because I'm just here like guiding you and telling you things, but it's credit for you and it's credit for the listeners that in that moment you go, fuck, I don't even know what this thing is, but I'm just going to go because I'm called and there's this chick up here giving me this option that I think I need to go to, and you just say yes and you do the thing. So tell us a little bit about like that moment of how you say, yes, I'm going to go. Yes, I'm going to sign up. Yes, I'm going to write a book. Yes, yes. And pushing through the resistance.
Well, I think that there is so much to be said for really listening to your gut. And I already had been self-employed. You know, I understand about having to be self-motivated and self-directed. And yet I also know that people do their best when they have something higher that they're pushing for and someone to be accountable to. And so immediately after Karen's workshop, you know, I had all of these thoughts about a book and how that might be organized that I was carrying around in my head. And she was going to have another workshop 3 months later. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to wait 3 more months. So I immediately asked her if I could just hire her to be accountable, to start to download the stuff that was in my head onto paper. And then also the commitment at work. And I thought, you know, I was making the commitment to you and the coaching and the group for what I knew I needed to do and what I wanted to step into, which was this project on life mapping. But I knew regardless, it would help me in my business as well. But it was scary. And I think that so many people who are just starting out, or they're women, whether you're in a position where you're financially dependent on someone else, or your business is just kind of up and down and finances aren't necessarily steady, you know, which has been my story for a lot of my life, it's really easy to talk yourself out of it. And to justify all the reasons why I shouldn't be the priority. And in reality, and this is really what I have tried to continue doing since then, is to say yes to me.
Woo.
God, I mean, it's time. And I think that is such the message for people out there. It's like, it is time to say yes to you.
As a mother of 4 boys, by the way, a single mother of 4 boys who has worked in real estate and worked your ass off. And might I ask how old you are?
I am 49.
And so you were 47 probably when I met you. It's time. It's time for me. And I know there's listeners saying right now, oh, I can't do the thing because I'm married, or I'm single, or I have 4 kids, or I have 2 kids, or I'm not financially stable. We all make the stories. There's a million stories. Everybody can make up a story. And you are the perfect example of you can do it anyway because you have every reason to say no. You have 4 dependent boys on you, and you did it anyway. If that's not pushing through resistance, I don't know what is.
And you know, I mean, really, they were also a big driving force in that decision for me. Because in the background, what was playing out too is that as I was getting older, I was getting close to the age that my mom was when she took her life by suicide. And I kept thinking to myself, like, if something happened to me at this point in my life and God had said to me, Dana, did you do everything with the gifts that I gave you? And my answer was no. And I felt so out of integrity, and I felt a ton of shame to think that if something did happen to me, my boys would never have seen me push through. They would have just witnessed me doing well. And I had success, but it's not the same kind of success when you're pushing through something you're scared to death of that you really think is where your purpose in life is lying in. It's how do you get in and dig that out and allow the boys to see that whole process. And, and I'm so grateful now. I mean, now, right, I can look back from where I started and I can see how my boys have supported me in this. And I can see they're proud of me. And I think they get it. And I'll be the first to tell them, as much as I've tried to be a good mom and do things differently than how I was raised, it's like, you're still going to get some of that yucky stuff that I carried around,
Yeah.
I tell them to save for their counseling budget now because I think we all need it. But that was such a big part of it for me, is knowing that I consider myself to be this person of integrity. And yet I was so out of integrity with myself, out of fear.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you feel on the other side of that? So clearly there's more to go, but you have accomplished a ton. I mean, and again, technically we're here supposed to be talking about branding, but this is about showing up. This episode is about showing up in your business, showing up in your life, showing up for yourself, showing up for your boys, showing up to make yourself proud. And yes, there's more to go. There's more to go for me. I just got a beautiful message from one of my dear friends that, she knows I'm, going through a little bit of a struggle right now. And she just was like, girl, it's just time and effort.
Yeah.
It's just time and effort. And so you have time and effort in front of you. However, 2 years, right? Since I met you.
Yeah, just about.
Almost 2 years. Yeah. You have written a book, had a book launch, written a companion. And let me be clear. This is not just some book. Ladies and gentlemen, it is one of the most spectacular books I've ever seen and read. It is beautiful. It is well done. It is thought out. It is helpful. It is creative. The companion guide is insane. Your book launch party was just, everything has been, I mean, this is why I wanted to have you on here. You are the exemplary person of how to do it the right way. How do you feel on the other side of that as a human being? If we're talking about what you just shared, so heartfelt, being proud, having your boys be proud of you, and showing up and making that decision 2 years later. 2 years, you guys, because that's one of my big things, is that 2 years is going to go by.
Yeah.
2 years is going to go by no matter what. And at 47, you could have very well been to 50 and been like, shit, I didn't do it, but you did it. So how do you feel different now?
Oh my gosh. In so many ways. I think the first thing that comes to mind is I definitely have a new sense of belief and trust and confidence in myself and my ability to take what I see in my mind and that vision and that pulling that I have in my heart, and then actually to have manifested it into something. And the many events along the way, which really, when I look back at them, I think of them a bit as miracles. That Bill Cohen, who was the original author of Life Mapping, was open and receptive to my idea of recreating the book and adding in the parts that I felt were missing that didn't address a lot of the old stories from my past.
So good.
That I just, I didn't know how to get to the other side. And it was so frustrating because I had this belief in myself, which I think you have to have.
Yes.
But I don't think I believed enough in myself to make it happen. And one of my old stories was, and obviously I understand now this didn't have anything to do with me. This had to do with my mom and then how she was raised. But in my house, there was this pressure that if you're going to do anything, you better know you're going to succeed. You better know that you're going to get it right, because otherwise don't even try.
Ooh.
And that's a tall order.
Absolutely.
It's really hard to take on a project like this and know that it is going to be successful. I mean, at this point, I still have a belief that I'm going places with it, but I don't know what the end of the story is. Yeah. So I do have the confidence in the fact that I went from the place where I was. And the incredible thing is that all of the tools that I teach in the workshop and that are in the companion guide, those are the tools that kept me on track to complete the project and write the book and accomplish the goal. So I lived that through the whole process. Yep. How do you keep a very successful real estate career where I'm 100% commission? How do you keep that going and start the institute, write the books? I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I think a big part of that too is part of the choice is other things have to be pushed to the side.
Say more about that. Like what?
Well, if you're going to go out and you're going to make this thing happen that you believe you can make happen.
Yep.
You have to be 100% committed.
Yes.
And that means sometimes, and I loved Jessica's guidance for this, is that, Jessica would say, it's like, we're the directors of our time during the day. Mm-hmm. And it's how do you get super smart about how many hours we have? And then what can we get done in that amount of time?
Yeah.
And you cannot be all things to all people.
Yep.
And this is a time where I just decided, you know what? I am going to take care of myself right now. This is a gift. I felt like it was a gift in a way of honoring me, a way of honoring God and what I feel like is a higher calling for me. And so anything that was optional, and even sometimes things you might not feel are optional, I really learned how to say, you know what? I really appreciate you asking. And right now I have a project I'm working on and I've decided to dedicate all of my free time to that project. So I can't do it now, but down the road, when I have more free time.
Yeah. It's so badass.
Yeah.
It's so badass. And it's so not socially acceptable.
Yeah.
Because we as women in particular, I believe that we are supposed to show up for everybody else. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to, give to everybody else. And your boys are grown. It's not like you have toddlers, almost grown.
Yeah.
But it is about setting boundaries and saying, I can't deal with this bullshit right now. Or if this relationship is not the healthiest it is, I need to put it on the back burner right now. And that is a absolute girl boss, lady boss, CEO mentality that I believe, obviously, because this is so much of what I teach, wholeheartedly it takes when something is important. Mm-hmm. And on that note, there is a knowing, right? Yeah. There's a knowing that I don't think everybody has. I believe God gives it to certain people. Elizabeth Gilbert talks about it in Big Magic, that we are given a thing. Mm-hmm. We're given an idea, and you were given this idea. Mm-hmm. And it does take sacrifice, and our lives literally have to shift. Mm-hmm. Things have to shift. And when something is that important to us, a calling, a knowing, whatever you want to call it, when we are met with that idea, things in our life have to shift. And our schedule, I don't know who said this originally, tons of people have talked about this, but our schedule really shows what our priorities are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it is TV, and granted, I love to watch some TV, but it's also thoughtful TV, because it's like my brain goes to sleep during that time. But it's about making sure that, again, our priorities and our time is reflective in our schedule. Mm-hmm. Because that knowing, I don't know about you, but obviously I have it. I have
Mhm.
this calling and a
Mhm.
knowing, and so do you. And I think all the people in the girl boss have it and the lady boss have it, is that nothing can and will get in the way of this message that we need to put out there. So how did you know this was your knowing? If we're talking about this whole episode being about showing up, how did you know that this was the knowing? And how long did you have the knowing? And I bring this up because I know the listeners. Like, I know I love putting myself in the place of the listeners, as I'm an avid podcast listener too. And I know the feeling that they're having right now. The listeners are listening going, oh shit, I know I have that knowing. Yeah. I know that I have that feeling, and I'm scared.
Yeah.
I'm scared. And I love watching you tear up. So take it away, because it's going to be good, because I can see you crying.
Well, I mean, and just hearing that gives me goosebumps, because I think that anybody who is listening that has that feeling, that hasn't acted on it, it is definitely, it comes to a moment in time. And I think it is loving yourself enough to choose you and to choose the answer to it. And in part because it honors us, but also knowing that it was hopefully going to help so many other people.
Yes.
And that other people, I didn't want them to have to wait until they were 47.
Yes, yes.
You know, 22 years after, you know, you asked, when did I have the first idea that this was something, was when I was 25.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever known this.
Yeah, I was at a leadership retreat, and I've always been part of personal growth and self-improvement, things like that. And I was at a leadership retreat, and they were offering, they were doing a guided meditation. And in that guided meditation, I saw myself speaking in front of literally thousands of people. And I remember coming out of that kind of looking around thinking like, God, like, was that for me?
Yes, it was.
What? And I knew the answer to that. And yet I didn't, like, I had no idea, except I just had this feeling that the image was there for a reason. And then after that, it would show up in all these random places. And I consider myself to be a fairly visual person and fairly in tuned with myself. And it would show up. I did a lot of hot yoga for years. It used to show up when I was in Shavasana, you know, laying there in dead man's pose.
Yeah.
I saw
my
it
favorite pose.
Oh gosh.
That means we're done.
Yeah, just incredible images. And you know what? When those would come to me, those were the loving, guiding. You know, I thought they had my best interests at heart always. But then it was that nasty inner critic that we have that was putting, I let it have more power over me than what I felt was trying to guide me. And those voices and that nastiness, that comes from projections of other people's lives and situations when I was little, that basically acted out and kicked the cat, kicked me. But when you're young, you know, and I love how Jenny Dawn describes trauma. You know, trauma is just when you're at any particular age, we only have the capacity to deal with so much. And when we're forced to deal with something that all of a sudden is like overflowing what our capacity is, it becomes something literally cellularly ingrained in us. And people talk about triggers, and that's what they are. And, you know, what I know now is there are ways to push through those. But part of that is actually staring the fear right in the face. Yeah. And saying and asking ourselves, where does that come from? Like, what the hell? Beautiful. Where does this come from? And identifying, you know, hopefully you can, identifying the exact moment that it happened, putting it into context. What was going on for that person in their life? Yeah. Who was I, just an innocent little girl, you know, trying to show up, you know, in that innocence and exploration. And then all of a sudden to have someone from outside of you tell you, you know, you're not good enough, you're not this or that. And then in order to survive, we start conforming to the expectation.
Yeah.
And yet here, I was 20 years later after that first visualization and still hearing and seeing the guidance. And yet, the damn critic letting that have more power than the wise voice that was trying to get my attention.
Yeah.
And I just think that's been one of my biggest life lessons is that voice, if you have it, it is there
for a reason
to help you.
Yes.
I mean, whenever I've honored that voice, it's never steered me wrong. It's always been there to try and protect me, to try and guide me. And yet, because of not understanding my own value and not having experience or practice, trusting it, and in honoring myself, that's why it took so long.
Tell me your relationship now as a 49-year-old woman and wise and accomplished. What is your relationship to your resistance now?
So my relationship to it now is I absolutely recognize when I'm having resistance. Beautiful. I can feel and I can see when the doubts creep in, and they definitely don't go away. They won't completely go away, but I think with time and with practice and with some of these tools that are in life mapping and, that are in so many programs, that how do you start to reprogram that voice and how do you start to give that more power? So when I recognize the resistance coming in now, instead of hearing it, I recognize it and I basically tell it to buzz off.
Nice.
Like, hey, you know what? I hear you and I see you, but I got this. Yeah. I can do this. I am doing this. Leave me alone. Go away. Like, I've got shit to do.
Yes. Yes.
So that's a big part of it now, is recognizing it and then in stopping to do the work and to bring in those nurturing thoughts and what I call the wise voice. And it's like also, Jenny and working with you, Jessica, when you say, if you were your 80-year-old self, what would you be saying to yourself?
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, that voice is so full of encouragement.
Yeah.
And absolutely wants the best for me, believes in me, is the biggest cheerleader. And it's like, that's the part that I try and turn toward and remember. And it's not always easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so easy to start to doubt ourselves, to start to compare, like you talked about, to minimize or second guess, what we're doing.
I do love that exercise. I'm really glad you brought that up. Just for the listeners right now, that exercise of the wise woman or your 80-year-old self of what would she tell you?
Yeah.
How is she guiding you? She's not telling you to go compare yourself. She's not telling you to get back in bed. She's not telling you to not eat the thing. She's saying, like, go be your badass self. Go be your most awesome, loving, kind, generous, graceful self, right? Yeah. She's telling you to go do the thing.
Right.
She's always going to do that. She's 80. She's going to say, who cares if you have a muffin top today? Who cares if you're not feeling your best? Who cares if you're doubting yourself? She's going to say, go do it anyway. And I that's funny that I haven't been connected to her for a while. So I actually thank you in this moment for myself for bringing that up, but I also the listeners to know that wise woman in you, you can meditate on her, you can create her.
Yeah.
My little 6-year-old self who, had some trauma, my 30-year-old self when I was going through just a bunch of trauma in my divorce, myself now goes and visits the 6-year-old, the 30-year-old, and my wise woman. And they hang out in this tree house that is suspended. It doesn't make any sense. It's a place. It's a place. And it's a long, rickety little rope ladder to get there. It's totally suspended. It makes no sense. And then there's a little rickety ladder to get out of there. And they all live in there and they play and they hang out and they all have this relationship. But that 80-year-old self of me, she's a fucking badass. And she is so calm and she is so peaceful and she is so centered. And she is the most confident woman I've ever seen because she's been through all the stuff. Yeah. And I do love that she can guide me.
Yeah.
And again, the 6-year-old self is helpful, but I think you're right. That 80-year-old woman, that wise woman of yourself can be quite the guide. Yeah. And if you guys don't know what we're talking about, you can learn this through meditation, past life regression. People like Jenny Dawn in our local area do those kinds of things where you bring in parts of yourself to help guide you. So your traumatic child self, for me, my 30-year-old self who was totally broken, and then, bringing in somebody who can guide you. Yeah. And it's a powerful exercise.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, recognizing the difference of when the fear is coming from that scared child place, and also realizing that today, as the women that we are, we do have the capacity and the ability to nurture ourselves and remind ourselves that we are enough. We are capable. We can do it. And it's just a different level of mindfulness, I think, to stop the negativity and put it into a different context.
Yeah. And you mentioned this earlier about cutting things out. And I think part of being able to show up fully and being authentic in our business, there is a sense of cutting some people out too. Would you not agree? That sometimes there are people in our lives that have been gossipy or don't fit into the same lifestyle or mentality. And I believe there has to be some tough love sometimes of, I need to do what's best for me and this vision and this calling that I have. And sometimes it means, again, making a tough decision and cutting some things and people out.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think that sometimes those decisions they can be so painful. And again, one of the things that I have hungered for is this emptiness of, wanting to feel love and connection, and sometimes staying with relationships and friendships where that is not necessarily supporting me in the healthiest way.
Yeah.
And if I back off and I'm really asking myself, is this supporting the best version of myself? In realizing that sometimes we can love people. And in my case, when my mom was very mentally not healthy, not available when I was younger. And you know what? I thank God that one of the things she did do was put me in counseling when I was really young. It's like she wanted these things for herself, but she didn't know how to implement them. And that psychotherapist, he was all about learning healthy boundaries. And, I remember back in the day, and you can do this as an adult, it's like sometimes we need to have no contact with people that we love because they're bringing us down.
Yeah.
Or they're just, suffocating us.
And it doesn't mean that we don't love them.
No,
and that's the beautiful part, is that we can love people by setting boundaries. We can love people by saying, I'm not going to participate in this. I'm going to get off of this roller coaster. I'm going to get out of this chaos. I'm still loving you. In fact, I'm sending you loving energy, but it no longer serves the person that I am becoming.
Yeah.
One of my dear friends, Sarah Dean, and she got this from somebody else, but I keep giving her credit for it, is we need to make space for our future.
Yeah.
And making space for our future is what you talked about early on in this podcast of setting time aside and setting boundaries and saying, I'm not going to do this thing because I've chosen to do something else.
Yeah.
But that's also setting boundaries with people and just saying, no, this no longer serves me.
Yeah. And, I had this realization too, that when I step back, one of the things that I will do is I'll start to project when I'm out of alignment, and I know that intuitively. Instead of being honest with myself and setting a healthy boundary or detaching out of love, I often come at it out of a place of resentment. and I will lash out at, or you talk about the back seat. It's kind of like, it's this reversed way of trying to make someone else wrong for how they are, because I'm not being true and honest to myself.
Yeah.
And that's so backwards. And when I allow myself to finally step back and to see this person for who they are and the things that I love about them, it's like, if I care about them, that is the right thing to do for them also. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not treating them with love and kindness and respect that they deserve.
Yeah.
And that's like, shame on me.
Yeah.
You know, that's a signal again to me of how important it is to just honor ourselves so that we can let people be who they are.
And so that we can show up.
Yeah.
Again, that's what this entire episode has been about, is that there's a lot of stuff we have to do to show up. And again, it's about branding, and it's about the colors, and it's about the logo, and it's about the marketing, and it's about all the stuff. And really what it is it's our stuff. Mm-hmm. It's our stuff, and we got to get clear about it. We got to know our resistance, and we got to set some boundaries, and we've got to slow down, and we've got to take time for ourselves. Mm-hmm. We've got to do all the stuff. Mm-hmm. So in closing, I always say in closing, and then we go like 20 more minutes. What got you to finally show up? So you say 22 years. Mm-hmm. What got you to finally do the thing?
Mm-hmm. I really think so. One was I put myself in a position of going somewhere and being surrounded in a community where I could learn and be supported. That was number one, because obviously it was already difficult to make the decision. So number one is, in choosing myself, I chose to get the help and the coaching and to be part of an incredible community.
Which is the Front Seat Life community, by the way.
It is the Front Seat Life community. And I mean, I just can't say enough about it. So it's not only saying yes to yourself, but then it's put yourself in a position to be supported. So that
that's huge.
You're reminded that you can. And I will say, one of the most phenomenal things about being part of the group was the ability to watch other people that were a little bit ahead of me and to see how they were stepping into their gifts and living them, and the transformation that was happening literally right in front of my eyes. To be able to see that and witness that in other people, it helped me have the confidence that I was going to be able to do it too.
Yeah. And I'm tearing up right now too, because now you're that person.
Yeah.
Are you having that full circle moment? Yeah. You are now that person. I love moments like this so much. You're talking about these other people who have gone on to do amazing things. Some of them might even still be in the group, but you are now that for the other women that are coming in.
Yeah.
That is powerful.
That's interesting. And I don't necessarily think about that. And I hear that right now. But I do want to say before we close, because the idea of this was to be on branding. I just want to say, one of the most wonderful things about the ability to work with you and coach with you was this ability to watch you in action and to see, like, oh my gosh, this girl has put herself together as this entire package. And I couldn't go anywhere and see hot pink and not think about you. I mean, literally, I just found myself anywhere, whether it was Michael's or, Target or Nordstrom or wherever, and I'd see either shoes or accessories, and I just wanted to take pictures of all of them and send them to Jessica, like, hey, maybe you want to buy this, or I'm over here, I'm thinking about you.
And by the way, I love when people do that, and they do it all the time, so don't ever not do that.
Well, and so it was a living testament and a living example, and it helped me get really clear about what spoke to me as far as the branding I wanted to create. I didn't have any idea when I started what the image of the book was going to look like or how all of the imagery and the companion guide was going to come together. What I knew was what makes me feel good. Awesome. And you helped me get really clear that feeling and that authenticity to who I am was what I wanted to bring out in what the company was and the institute. And I just continued to try and come back to that and be true to that. And I can absolutely say when I knew that it worked was the retreat that I taught almost a year ago.
Yeah.
I printed the first version of the companion guide. It hadn't even been through final editing. And I can remember I shared it with a small group of people from my office when we went back to Alderbrook, where we were doing business planning and life mapping for the upcoming year. And what I loved was as soon as I got home, someone from the retreat had ordered me a mouse.
Oh, right. I remember this story.
That,
yes.
minty green color.
Which is totally your color.
Oh my gosh. And I thought, okay, that is it.
That's branding.
That's the sign.
Yeah. That's your version of seeing something hot pink and sending it to me. That is branding.
Yeah.
That is showing up. And I know branding is also about who you are.
Yeah.
And so what I love about working with people like you, because we're very similar, I'm an ENFJ and you're an INFJ, is that I hope this is true. And I know that I know this is true, but is that I've never tried to change you to be like me.
No.
It's always about accepting you for who you are and your cadence in the way that you speak and share and how you love to connect in a different way. And I just think so much of the branding is also a very personal choice. And you said that earlier. It's not about someone else telling you what color or what it should look like. And, sometimes I don't remember what I said. And I love that I said, how do you want it to feel? Because again, people oftentimes will ask me things like, what do you think? And I don't mean it to be like, an irritating therapist response, but it's like, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like, I can give you my opinion, but you are your brand.
Right.
What's your color? What's your feel? How do you want to be? Because it has to be authentic. It has to be your personality type and your colors and your imagery for it to feel in flow.
Right. And that's even true, not, taking it a step further is it's the consistency of that brand throughout. But the other thing that I really gave myself permission for this year in finally having the book and exploring with the workshops was that I do want to be true to myself. And I know that the only way to do that is to allow myself to play with different forms of workshops, different audiences, different lengths of time, different venues, different companies, and realizing some of it I'm going to like and some of it I'm not going to like, but I'm going to give myself permission to do where I feel the strongest calling.
Yes.
And so that is such a great point, is that as we're expanding our businesses, we're still learning in the process. And it's just a reminder, you have to continually turn inward and ask yourself, am I still on the right path? Am I answering the calling for me? Or am I suddenly trying to do something the way someone else thought I should do it?
Totally. I'm throwing my hands in the air right now because yes, and yes. Yes. Yeah. So we got to wrap this up. I think we could go like 3 more hours. I have a couple of things I want to say before we close. And listeners, you do not want to end right now because I'm about to drop a little bit of a bomb on Dana and she doesn't even know it. You are amazing.
Thank you.
And I have to say, I'm sitting over here having a very proud moment.
You should. You really should.
Having a very, very proud moment of how far you've come, how much our relationship has grown. I don't have children of my own, and you're older than I am just by a couple of years, but it's one of those moments where I watch people like you specifically like flourish and go do the things, and it is a very, very proud moment for me.
It has to be.
It is. And I would think if I was listening, like, do you not want to hang out with this chick? Do you not want to hang out with me? Do you not want to hang out with the other lady bosses? And so we have an event. I have an event 1 time a year. This is it. I mean, most times this is the only time you get to come and hug me and hang out with Dana and hang out with people. And this is the bomb I'm about to drop. So one of my proudest moments as a coach is being able to pass the baton. And I have not asked you this. I literally am having this feeling in this moment. is passing the baton to people who are doing awesome things. I cannot do everything. I don't want to do everything. I do what I do. And then there's really awesome other people. There is a VIP section of the event that I am going to ask you if you would come and teach some of your life mapping to the VIPers at the event.
I would love that.
Done and done.
Absolutely.
Because it is my proudest moment when I actually get to step back and watch my friends and my students flourish and do amazing shit like you're doing. And so in that moment, I don't want to learn what you do. I just want you to come teach it because I respect you. I love you. And I cannot wait for that moment in just 2 months on Saturday, the 21st, to be able to step back and let you shine and let you be awesome.
Amazing.
So listeners, come hang, come play. She will now be teaching at the Front Seat Life event to the VIPers. But how else can people find out about you? Like, come to the Front Seat Life event. It's September 19th. We're having a party. 20th, all day it will be me. Half the day on Saturday, me. And then you get people like Dana to come really help you do an implementation and integration. Because I've got my tools. But Dana now has like this absolutely ridiculous whole thing amazingness about how to do this. So how else can they find you other than coming to the event?
They can find me through the Life Mapping Institute website,
which is
www.lifemappinginstitute.com.
Awesome.
I list events there and anything that's upcoming, the blog, more information about life mapping itself. And then also on Facebook, the Life Mapping Institute Facebook page is there. And so there's communication about what's coming up. And
they can buy your books on Amazon.
Yep.
They can listen to the audio. You just did that. Is that done yet? Is it upload? Okay. Audible.
Kindle.
The book. And you guys, it truly is. It's, there's a lot. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Nobody who coaches with me is allowed to put out a shitty book, but because I hate that. But it is a spectacular piece of work.
Thank you.
Yeah, you really did an amazing job.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being of such amazing service to the listeners today.
Thank you. I'm honored and I love you. I thank you so much for helping me get where I am today.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, everybody, I have a confession to make. I have a new obsession, and that obsession is reading your ridiculously wonderful, loving, amazing reviews on iTunes. I love them. None of this even matters without all of you. So as a thank you, each week I will be reading one review on air and calling out your review with your name or your iTunes handle. So here's how it's going to go. You're going to go to Instagram and follow me at Front Seat Life. When you hear your name called out on the podcast, you are going to send me a DM with your address and say, "Oh my gosh, you just read my review." And I or my team will be sending you some Front Seat Life swag. We've got books and we've got tank tops and we've got journals and we have these adorable pink swells. So we will be choosing from the goodie bag and sending it out as a thank you. So thank you in advance. And I am so deeply honored to have the opportunity to thank you back. Today's review comes from a very special place. I'm actually doing some recording. I'm having a planning session. My amazing director of operations, Stephanie, and her children were here, and I am at Seabrook, Washington. And I have to just tell you what just happened as I am about to record some podcast episodes for you guys and some reviews. But before I read today's review, I just had a whole bunch of birds fly in my room. I'm at this beautiful cottage and some birds flew in. They were safe and lovely. They didn't run into anything and they flickered around and then they flew out. So hopefully that is a great sign as I go into reading you some reviews today. So just a little insight as to where I am at the moment. I'm an avid podcast listener and I love when I know where the people are, what they're hanging out. So that's where I'm coming to you from today. It is cloudy and gray in August at the beach in the Seattle area. I'm on the coast here at Seabrook. So without further ado, let me read today's amazing review. And it is from Lizzie B74. And she just writes, "Listen up! You won't regret it." 5-star review on iTunes. "Jessica is the freaking bee's knees." She shows up as her true self, funny, enthusiastic, and knowing her stuff. She has changed my life since 2013. Wow. And I haven't looked back. Give Jessica a listen. She never disappoints. Thank you so much, Lizzie. From the bottom of my heart, truly, thank you so much for listening. I know that you have a ton of options, and the fact that you are taking time to listen to the Front Seat Life podcast means absolutely everything to me. If you're interested in learning more about the Front Seat Life way of life in the community, there's a couple ways that you can do that. First is always starting with your personality assessment tool. It's available on my website at jessicabutts.com. It's totally free, and it will help you figure out your personality type so you'll have some idea of what we're talking about. Next is, if you're interested in hiring me for a keynote or some coaching or strategy days or the fabulous and amazing Front Seat Life community, you can find out all about all of that at jessicabutts.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.